Okay, so I think we're coming to the last few videos for this tutorial set. So I want to just look at what we've got working so far. So if I go to my index and launch the application. So what we've got is we've got our table of to-dos that are displayed nicely. I can add new to-dos using this text box, and it doesn't refresh the page, it just updates the table. And I can change this value here is done, so I can say, well, I've completed this one, and if I refresh, it actually stores that status. It uploads it to the server and then redraws the table here. So, and that's the thing we did last time, was we added some jQuery event listeners to these checkboxes, which allows that to happen. So what I'm going to do today is maybe two things, maybe one, depending how long it takes. But really, we're kind of at the polish stage now, where the functionality is there. There's some security things I want to talk about in another video, which will be the last video, where actually if you're not logged in and you can still get to this page, it doesn't tell you need to log in, and it's pretty easy to add that, but I'm going to do that in the last video. So the functionality is all there that we want. What's missing is a little bit of like I don't know, like polish. So when an item is done, it would be nice if it was crossed out, which is the style should change if an item's completed. And the other thing is that I like this progress bar up here, so we're going to try and add one of those ourselves. That's the two things we're going to do. So we're going to start with the styling. So I'm going to stop this. The way I'm thinking of doing this is to define a CSS class that's going to be our like completed item, and that's the style we want that to be. And that will define in one of the CSS files that is part of our web application. And then what we'll do is we're going to add some logic here in our partial view. Remember, this is our to-do table partial view. So this is what builds the table here. And the way that this is building it, this is Razor. It's a mix between C# and HTML. And this @ symbol is telling us we're switching from HTML to C#. So we've told it the model we're expecting is a list of to-dos. And then here, which is where the table is built, we do a for each item in our model, and we write down the description and we add the checkbox, and then we add these action links for like edit, details, delete. I'll tell you what, I'm going to get rid of the details because we don't need that. We'll leave the delete in there. That'll be fine. Right, so yeah, so it loops through and it makes these. Now what we want to do is we want to say, well, if this item is done, we want this description to be crossed out. And so we'll add the CSS class to this display, this text. And we'll do that by putting it into a div and giving that div the class that we set up. So let's set up the class first. Now where is the CSS content? There we go. Right, okay. I always forget where this is. But what you're seeing in all of these pages are using Bootstrap templates, which is why you see this Bootstrap CSS, and we're actually going to use a Bootstrap progress bar later on. But for now, that's why you see this, that's all I'm saying. I'm going to open up the site CSS, which is like just another CSS file that's loaded, and I'm going to put my own custom class in here. You could make your own CSS file if you wanted, and then load that in the to-do table in the index page. But I'm going to put it in here because this will load as well, and it will work. So I'm just going to put a comment in styling for to-do items. We could, if we wanted to, make classes for like not done and done, but we're just going to put completed to do. So the point, remember, using the full stop here means we're referring to a class. So it could be any element that has this class will have this. And to do a strike through, it's text decoration line through. That's all we need to do in there. I'm going to put that here so we remember what it's called. And then we need to tell this to put this display into a div with this class if it's done. So we just need an if statement. So we can do if item is not done, then we want it to be the same as it is now. Else, now we want to put it into a div. Class equals completed do. Notice the IntelliSense has picked that up, which is a nice feature. And then we put this, if I got that selected yet, in there. Now what this is showing you is how nice Razor is to work with, because it's really clever at figuring out where the C# ends and the HTML begins. So it sees I've put this at, and I've got this C# if statement. This at again is actually changing it. Well, we've then got HTML here, but it's with this HTML helper using the at HTML. I've got a double in there. So I could, if I wrote this, it wouldn't display. It would run that in C# and not do anything. But we want the helper to actually render the HTML. So we do it as if I'm writing up here. Don't worry too much about that. That's probably a bit more confusing than it needed to be. So then we're back into the if statement. We're writing just normal HTML here. It knows that. It knows the symbols. It knows when it's right. This is HTML, and then we put in the helper. So this, in theory, should work. So let's do it. Right, that hasn't worked. Why is that? Let's have a look at our tools and look at the console, at the elements, I mean. Again, this is like for debugging, this is really useful. So let's find one that's done. What have we got? Div class equals completed to do. Well, it's done it, but it hasn't styled it. So let's have a look. It hasn't got. Not sure why that didn't work. Right, let's have a look back. So the logic is working. The thing that isn't working is that the styling isn't working. And if you look, it hasn't got the site CSS. Let's stop this. Let's look. So that's saved. I'm going to try running it again. Do a build solution. I'm also going to open the console. I don't think. Okay, right. Okay, yeah, no, it was what I thought it was. Okay, here's a lesson. This is a good thing that's happened. to get that to refresh, I pushed Control F5, so what happened, my browser had cached the CSS files, and it wasn't reloading the new ones. So I needed to do a refresh that ignored the cache. And so Control F5 does that, I think. The other thing is at some point I've set up my browser. Where is it? Disabled cache while DevTools is open. So I've got the cache disabled. So I'm not sure if it was the Control 5 or whether it was just the refresh because the developer tools are open. It disables the cache, so it looks for the new. It always looks to the server and gets the new stuff. This is a really important thing to know, because you will probably come across this problem if you're doing any kind of web development. So there you go, top tip. Different browsers are going to be slightly different. This is Chrome. So there we go. So is it live? Right. Yeah, so I can, there, it's working exactly as we wanted. So if I click it, it strikes it through. If I unclick it, it doesn't. I can refresh and it's there. Awesome. So style change if it's completed. I don't. Right. So I think we're going to make this progress bar as well today. Now, the progress bar, there is a Bootstrap class that is a progress bar, which we're going to use. Because this has got Bootstrap all in it, we can use it. It's fine. So that's going to go. So this is the table. I'm going to build the progress bar in our partial view, because our partial view is taking in information from the controller. It's taking the model in. So we're going to use information from that model. We're going to extend the model using the view bag, actually. And then this is going to render the progress bar. So the progress bar is going to need to know what's the percentage complete, basically. So what we'll do, actually, we'll do the logic first. I mean, it's obvious. So a progress bar, the progress bar that we're going to make has an attribute, HTML attribute, that is basically progress. And if it's set to 50%, then the progress bar is set to 50% full. And that's what we're going to be using. So to do that, this view needs to know what is the percentage number of items that are complete. And we work that out in the controller. And remember, we made a function getMyToDos. Now, getMyToDos is always called whenever we need to build the partial view to-do table. So remember how we use that? So if I look everywhere where we make this view, we're calling getMyToDos. So if we make the changes to this function, that will go through all our code, which is a reason why do you remember a lot of this code we'd kind of copied and pasted, but I said, you know what, we're using it several times, let's make a function for that. And that's one of the great things about like putting, segmenting your code like this is really helpful. So we need to do two things. We need to count how many to-dos we've got and how many to-dos are complete. So what I'm going to do, instead of just returning this straight away, I'm going to do my to-dos, let's call it, equals this thing. And that's what we'll return at the end. We'll return my to-dos. So the output of this function isn't changing. What we're going to do is we're going to put the percentage complete into something called the view bag, which I'll explain. To be honest, if you made it this far through these tutorials, you probably know what the view bag is, but I'm going to just explain it anyway. But for now, let's just quickly work out the percentage complete. So first we want to count. The total number is easy because this enumerable object, it's got a variable, just count, which we can use, or as a function count, which just counts them. So we can use that pretty easily. We don't need to manually do it. But to count the ones that are complete, I'm going to do complete count equals 0. Then for each, it's a to-do in my to-dos, if to-do dot is done, then we increment complete count. So plus plus just adds 1 to it. So there we've got the number complete. Now we're going to use this thing called viewBag. And viewBag kind of sounds exactly like it is what it sounds like. It's a bag of stuff that if we add things to this bag in our controller, our view will be able to access that. Everything's going to be put in this bag and sent to our view in the header lines, depending if it's post or get, depends how it's done, but that data is going to be sent to our view. Well, it might not actually work like that because it's going to be rendered. Yeah, not entirely sure I was right there, but somehow this information gets to our view so we can use it. So far, we've been using this model idea, which is a strongly typed thing. So IntelliSense knows what the model is. So that down here, we can use things like item.id, and it auto-completed that for us. And so like we can loop around var item in model, and because it knows model is a list of to-dos, all of this IntelliSense stuff works, and it's much better for figuring out if something's gone right or wrong. ViewBag isn't strongly typed. We can give any kind of type. It's going to end up as a string for us eventually, but we can put anything in here. It's a little bit lazy, but when you're adding just like one thing like this, I don't see a problem with it. What you should technically, a better way to do this would be to make a new class, a new model that's a view specific model that contains a collection of to-dos and that extra information that we need for the page. That would be the best practice. But for the sake of this tutorial, we're just going to do it like this. But I am letting you know there's a better way. So viewBag% equals. We're going to want this as an int. Well, we don't need to do that. Let's not do that. Let's not cast it. So it's going to be 100 times. I am going to cast these to floats so that we don't end up with an integer division. Complete count divided by float my to-dos dot count. So that just gives you, so that's giving you the number of elements in here in my to-dos. So that should give us the percentage complete. So let's have a look if that works. So let's do a, we're gonna put it in a div to be tidy. ID equals progress bar. And I'm just going to call it progress. No, I can't call it progress because, no, I can. It's fine. Progress bar to do. There we go. I was trying to make sure whatever I called it would be unique. Then let's have a paragraph where it says at viewBag dot percent. I'm going to put this in a bracket here because that tells this at that the C# is in here. And then the percentage sign might cause problems if I didn't do that. So this should read that whatever the percent value is with a little percent sign. So let's run it. There we go. So we've got our percent complete up there. And as I change this, it updates correctly. Now we could... right, do you know what we're going to do? Is we're going to... I don't like all these decimal points here. So how do you round? We need to round this. We want to round this to an int. Let's see, math. I bet there's a round. Math round, round double to the nearest int. Yeah, okay, we'll use this. Okay, so math round, that should round it. Let's run it again, see if that is a bit nicer. Yes, better. That looks nice, doesn't it? You don't want the point. Who cares if I'm doing that to do is giving me 0.1% extra progress. Cool. So now we want the progress bar. So the progress bar, this is something like you just have to look up and find to know that this existed. So what it is, it's a div with a class equals progress. Progress, there we go. Now, notice how we're getting IntelliSense autocomplete, because we've got the Bootstrap CSS. It's all, that's what we're using. If you can actually go online and look for other Bootstrap templates to make your site look like different to what the site normally looks like. So the way that it works, the way I think it works, is that you have a progress div on the outside, and then the progress bar is the bar in the middle that's going to change size. And we give it a role equals progress bar. And then the style, this is basically going to be a width, a percentage width. And the percentage width that this is how far along in progress we've got. And so this is going to be our view bag dot percent, and then percentage, and then close the div, and we've also closed the other one. So that's that. Now something I'm going to add here is that we're putting this string in a HTML attribute. Now, someone could do some nefarious stuff if they found a way of putting their own string in here. Then they could do like a scripting attack, cross-site scripting attack. So we want to avoid that, and we want to make sure sanitize this basically. Now it automatically sanitizes stuff for HTML, but not for HTML attributes. So let's do that. And you need to think about that if you've got any of this stuff in JavaScript too. Is there's a JavaScript encode? So we're going to do attribute encode, which just will do encode whatever values in here for HTML attributes. Okay, so let's see if this works. I'm going to have a look at these elements and see if it is what I think. Okay, so we've got 0. There's like not much padding between that, and I don't like that. All right, okay, let's do, right, okay, yeah. That isn't bad. I think that's pretty good. Let's have a look at these elements then. More tools, developer tools. Elements, so where was this going to be? Right, we called it, what did we call it? We called it div. It'll be in the table div because, yeah, so progress bar do. So we've got the number, 40-something%. So yeah, you can see the progress div is this whole thing. as you can see, look where it's highlighted, is the whole thing is the progress class, and the bar is that bit in the middle. Obviously, the width is the percentage of this top one. Now, what's quite nice is that if I maximize this, the size of the bar changes based on my window size. But it's still the right percent, and it works. So yeah. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. So we can click that one off. Oh, that changes color when it's 100%. We could do that. I'm not going to. We totally could, because you would then, similarly to how we did the logic before. Where are we? So when we did this kind of logic, if item is done, we could do an if view.percent is 100, then change the color of the bar. But we're not going to do that right now. I think this is looking quite good. Do we need this? Do we need description and it is done? I'm going to get rid of them, because I don't think we do. Because I think people know, like, it's not useful information. So I think, for me, the way I like design is take away redundant stuff, because I don't think you need to see, like, it's obvious. It's obvious that this is my to-do list. It's got the title of the checklist. We could maybe have that. Why don't we do this? Stop this. Let's so we're going to do it here. We're going to do H2. Header 1 probably is a bit too. I'm just going to call it my to-do list. There. Then in this table, I didn't like that as it was there. I think that's better underneath. And I'm wondering, the thing with not knowing. So there might already be. What I'm wondering is if we can make something a bit smaller. I'm not. I'm not, like, that's quite small text. It's quite nice. But there might be like a class that CSS that's in Bootstrap that would fill that role nicely for us. But I'm not going to go there. I'm going to try and hold back on my OCD. So what does this look like? Do you need the number? Do you care if it's 54%? I don't think. I'm not going to go to anyone and say, oh, I'm 69% complete. Like, the important thing is the bar. So let's just get rid of the number. So let's get rid of that number. So there we go. And I think that is a clean, nice to-do list. And I think one of the other things about this, which I hope we're not quite finished. I'm just checking the progress bar. We're not quite finished as of yet, because there are some security things to do with user authentication I want to sort out, which we'll do next time, which is probably quite a short video. In fact, it might be really quick to do it. I just got to remind myself of how you do it. So at the moment, we've got users, but we're not using any kind of authorization. So we've not told our application, we've not told .NET, like, we only want authorized users to be able to use this and this. And it's pretty straightforward to do that. There's also something else we need to do with the way we're using these So I'm actually looking through my notes from my lectures because I don't want to get this wrong. So basically, okay, I'm not going to, well. So the first thing we need to do, at the moment, all of our requests are happening over HTTP, whereas really we want to do this over HTTPS because it's more secure. We want to encrypt all this information that's being sent, basically. HTTP doesn't do that. So that's to do with our project settings. So we can click to do that. We do this. Go to our project, right click, probably properties, I think. Web. Right, okay, well, project URL. What we're going to be doing is changing this to HS. That's what this is doing is telling, this is just a project setting telling it what browser, what to launch when it does the browser, what to go to. What we add, the thing that really changes it, let's cancel that. Right. Let's do it in here first. Okay, SSL enabled is what we want. True. Now we've got this, it's this URL. Properties. Now change that. There we go. That's what I was doing wrong. Okay, and then we should run it now. And you should always use HTTPS if you've got any kind of user, any kind of user logins, really. So it's adding encryption, and it's avoiding things like man-in-the-middle attacks, where someone could, in theory, relay your communication, alter something. Yeah. So if someone got your request somehow and then changed some information and then sent it along, that kind of stuff, this stops that from being possible because it's all encrypted. So that was the first thing. The next thing is that we need to actually tell ASP.NET to authorize which methods need authorization. And we do that through data annotations, basically. So we go to our ToDo controller, and we go through here, and we can add authorize to. So if I click here and I do authorize, what this is saying is that a user needs to log in to perform this action. So now if I launch my index, this won't make a difference for us now because we're currently logged in. But if I log off and I click my to-do list, it's going to ask me to log in because the controller action that it tried to fire requires authorization. So that's stop. Now, what is better is instead of going through and putting authorize on just those methods that we want to be authorized, that you need to be authorized, is because you might forget something, is to actually make the default so that you need to be authorized to do everything, and then use unauthorized as the method. And I forget how to do that, so I'm going to just quickly Google it. So it's to do with the web config. So let's do it. Let's do a Google to make authorize default MVC. There we go. Good old stack. It's possible default behavior. Maybe not. Trying to think. I'm looking for my lecture notes and my other thing because I definitely put this in a lecture, but I can't remember which lecture it was in. So sorry about this. This is what happens when I decide, oh yeah, we'll just do it now. So if you're on my course, the applications you're going to be doing are going to have different users as well with different like roles. So there's like even more to think about in that kind of idea. Right, I can't find this at the moment. I can't even remember what it's called now. So what is it? Make every controller require .NET MVC 5. Yeah, okay, sorry, it was the filter. Yeah, okay, yeah. I remember now. Okay, so we need the filter config, which is... So the filter... So let's have a look at... See if we can find app start is... So this is something that's run during startup, basically. So this will be run at the start, and we can add these filters which change the behavior of something over the whole application. So we want to filters dot add new authorization authorize attribute. So we're adding then the authorize attribute to everything. So we don't need, let's get rid of to do control, let's get rid of this. So that's, we're going to run it. See, it's immediately requiring us to log in. But the thing is, if we go to just the home page, it requires us to log in. You might want that behavior, but probably you want people to be able to get to your home page without having to log in. So you can, let's go to our controllers home controller, which is going to be the index. And I think it's none. Let's do authorize. Again, I can't remember what it is. There's a way of, I think it's authorize. You can basically do something like that. So let's have a look. Summarize attribute MVC 5. Again, I like, if you can't remember things, like I struggle to remember things, so it's fine. You don't have to remember everything. So I think we're... So... See if this works. Allow anonymous. That's what I was getting wrong. Okay, so allow anonymous is the one you want. So we want everything in here to be allow anonymous. And then if we run this, we should be able to get to the home page, and we can, without it telling us to log in. But if we try to go to the My To-Do list, we then have to log in, and it's not remembered because it's a different URL from before. But there you go. So hopefully that series of videos was useful. So we've got a what was the email? What was it? user1@email.com. Hopefully what this has shown you is that it's possible to make kind of modern, slick applications with this framework. Okay, we could spend more time styling this and making it look much nicer. We could add animation to this so that when we click on this, rather than just jumping, it could animate maybe with some jQuery. Totally doable. You could add some dragging UI, so you could drag these around like in Trello. It's all possible. But this was to show you, it ended up being quite, I would say it's an intermediate tutorial, for sure. It wasn't basic. It got quite complicated towards the end. And actually, I think the first few videos were the most complicated, and we can add things. So I'm quite happy with how this turned out anyway. Sorry about the hiccup towards the end of this video, but I did actually want to record that at some stage, is that to show you that even if you've been doing this for a while, you still get to the stage where you're like, oh, I know you can do that thing, but I'm not sure how to do it. And I really think the most important thing to be like a good developer is more about knowing that things are possible and then knowing where to get the information to do them than actually knowing like immediately, oh, I just type allow anonymous. Because the next time now I'll remember this, probably, hopefully. So yeah, as always, this is the first time I've done anything like this, so I'd really like some feedback if you've watched all the videos. If you have watched all the videos, thank you. I appreciate it. And if you think they'd be useful for someone else, share them to someone else. You can share them whenever you want. The more people that the more people that use them and benefit from them, is better. So comments, questions, any requests for other kinds of tutorial videos to do, let me know. Outside of teaching, I keep wanting to do some Unity tutorials. I will try and do that at some point in my own time. If you're on my course and you have specific questions you want me to answer, let me know. If you're not on my course and these videos aren't already on, I'm going to be putting on some more kind of basic videos that cover the more basic concepts of the MVC framework. So thank you very much for watching. Yeah, my Twitter is @Dr. Sean Walton. I'm a lecturer at Swansea University. Feel free to get in touch if you have any questions or comments. Thanks.